girls, Doug Giles here. It's Warriors, Rich.
And Wildmen. What's happening, Doug?
Hey, Rich, as you know, for this podcast that we're about to roll on, I was out in deep, I'm talking deep West Texas, hunting whitetail on this glorious ranch, 28,000 acres,
Wow.
teeming with wildlife. Rich, it hadn't been hunted in like 10 years, and low pressure, no feeders, no stands, no nothing, just the country like it was way back in Adam and Eve time period.
Nice.
Except for the fact that Interstate 10 runs through the top half of it. But anyway, it was a great hunt, man. You would have loved it. Zeke would have loved it. But alas, it kept me away from doing this podcast with you and your pastor friend from Europe. I'm eager to hear what's going on, and I'm eager to hear what he has to say, because I think those guys who come from those brutal enclaves where they've been under the boot of Marxism and communism, which is festering here in the United States like a big zit right now, I think they've got a lot to say to we the people, the church in particular. And so I'm going to sit back, eat some popcorn, drink a beer, smoke a cigar, and watch you and your buddy go for it.
Yeah, sorry you weren't there for that interview. I know we had tried to work that out, and he was just here in the United States for a short time. His name's Pastor Ingolf Schmidt. He's from Germany, underground church in East Germany. The secret police were all over him.
Awesome.
Incredible story. Worth listening to, because when he came to the United States, he sees what's going on here, and he talks about that. But you'll hear stuff from what it was like behind the Iron Curtain that's not stuff that you see on TV. It's really an incredible interview because of him sharing so much. So, yeah, enjoy that.
Yeah, I want people to understand that what's being foisted upon Americans right now does not lead to a joyful kibbutz. It gets bad. And Marxism and communism in the last century, the 20th century, equated 100 million people dying once they rose to power.
Yeah.
So all this stuff that Biden's pushing, all this crap that Pelosi's talking about, AOC in particular and her little squad, this movie ends badly if they get into power. So enjoy, folks. And Rich, it's like I said, I'm envious of you, brother. I've talked to a lot of people like him who've grown up under that garbage. And again, it doesn't end well. And we need to make certain that this podcast goes far and wide. And we got to make double certain, Rich, that people, that they steel up in their will to resist this kind of putrid, anti-theistic, anti-Christian, anti-liberty worldview.
Yeah, amen.
Go get them, brother. Roll camera.
Hey guys, welcome to Warriors and Wildmen. We have a special episode for you today. Have my friend Pastor Ingolf Schmidt with us, and Doug is not with us because he's out hunting somewhere around the world doing what he does, and so we're going to go ahead and do this one without him. We'll miss him, but we're going to do it. So I'd like to introduce you to my friend Pastor Ingolf Schmidt.
Thank you.
Great friend of mine. Welcome to the podcast, Pastor Ingolf. And I want to read your biography to give the listeners and viewers a little bit of an idea of who you are, some context for the conversation. Born in communist country of East Germany, married since 1980, father of 3 children and 2 grandchildren. It's pretty good. Raised by his parents, Pastor Schmidt grew up as an atheist, and in 1978 he gave his life to Jesus while he was a soldier in the Communist Army. That's a pretty big resume already. He founded Living Word Church in Leipzig. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Leipzig.
Leipzig. You say it better than me. In 1985, at that time it was not an official church because it was forbidden by the communist government. Uniquely, it was the first new church and Word of Faith underground church in the city, and the second one in the country. In recent years, several Bible school classes have been held in Germany and Poland. In 1992, Pastor Schmidt was ordained by Lester Sumrall, who's a giant in the faith. If you're a listener and you don't know who that is, look him up. Pastor Schmidt has a strong traveling ministry, which he has led throughout Europe, Russia, and the United States and Asia. He has frequently traveled to the U.S. since 1998, preaching and reminding the American people not to forget his benefits. He frequently uses examples from the underground church, but often in a humorous way. These stories and testimonies inspire and encourage people to follow Christ in a serious and genuine way. And so that's who we're talking with today, Pastor Ingolf Schmidt. And like I said, he's a great friend of mine. We've been friends for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
And we've had some really great conversations. So I'm looking forward to this because I think it's an exciting opportunity to share some of the incredible conversations that we have had with the listeners and the viewers on Warriors and Wildmen. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about growing up and then how you came to know the Lord, and then we'll talk more about the United States, and we can talk about some of the stuff we were talking about yesterday.
After World War II, Germany lost World War II, and the four allies, America, Great Britain, France, and Russia, they divided Germany in four pieces. They call it zones. And the Russians, they had the east part, and that's where I grew up. And so, of course, 1917, the Russian, they had this communist revolution, and so it changed the whole landscape of the world. And so by the beginning, almost the beginning of the end of World War II, 1/6 of the world became communist countries.
Wow.
And so I grew up in Leipzig. I was born in Leipzig, grew up a little bit outside. And so my father, he was a communist, a believer in communism. And the reason for that is my grandfather, he was fighting for Adolf Hitler in his Wehrmacht, what's his army. And the Americans, they took him, the American army, they took him to Norfolk, Virginia, where he served for 2 years in a prisoners camp there. And after these 2 years, he came back on a boat. And in England, they took him for another year in a prison camp there too. And so almost, I think it was about 7 years later, his army time and prison time, he returned home to Leipzig, where my father lived. And so my grandfather, he told my father I was fighting for the wrong people, for the wrong ideology. And so you have to do better. And because the Russians, they introduced communism, and they put in every higher position a communist leader, he became part of this movement and became also kind of a leader. And he really believed in that. And so when I was 15, it was about when I was 15 years old.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Okay, so your grandfather fought in the army under Adolf Hitler.
Yes.
Okay. So he came back after his army time, being a prisoner of war in the U.S. and then also in Great Britain. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then he said, I was fighting for the wrong side, for the wrong ideology.
Yes.
Okay, he was talking about Hitler's ideology.
Yes.
So he embraced communism. That's what I'm wondering, because
it was brand new. So, and it sounds, socialism sounds very good. Everybody's equal, everybody helps each other. And so the idea is actually a great idea, but it never worked. That's the problem, because humans, they everywhere, if they are not born again, I mean, even if they are born again, they can be very selfish.
Yeah.
So that's why the idea is of communism or socialism is a great idea, but it never worked. And so my father then, he became kind of a communist. He believed in it. But when I was 15 years old, something changed.
So your grandfather was under Hitler and said you have to do better.
Yes.
So your father was introduced to communism.
Yes.
But without understanding really how the expression of communism worked yet.
Yes.
It was new and it sounded good.
Yes.
And he said, this is definitely better than what we were doing under Hitler.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Because I had not understood that before until now.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting.
Because it was brand new. It was idealistic. I don't know how to say that. And so the concept sounds great and was very, sounds good for people.
Yeah.
And especially, Hitler made statements like he was totally against communism, and he was totally against the communist movement in Russia, and he And so the communists, when they had election time during Hitler's time, they always said, if you vote for Hitler, you vote for war. So they knew that. And so because of that, a lot of German people, especially on the East German side, they thought that's probably a great idea. So they did it. And the problem was in America did something very good after World War II in West Germany. They brought professors from American universities to West Germany, and they teach them democracy. So we never had real democracy. Before we had the Kaiser and then the Americans, they put millions of US dollars in the German economy. The reason for that was after World War I, Germany was defeated. They had to make reparation payments. And so the whole country was suffering. There was hunger, there was poverty. The self-image, the self-esteem of the Germans was totally destroyed. And so what they did, most people said, we need a strong leader who helps us out of that mess. And of course, Adolf Hitler was available, and he won the election, became the Führer, and actually the economy was booming. The self-esteem, self-image of the German people was restored. They was proud again to be Germans. And so the Americans, after World War II, they said, we will not make that same mistake. So we teach them democracy and we help them to come back on their feet. And so they created an economic boom on the West German side. On the East German side, the Russians, they took everything out. Machinery, even the engineers or the scientists, they took them to Russia. And so East Germany had a bad start from the beginning. But so because of this economical boom on the West side and the poverty in the East side, a lot of Germans, East Germans, moved to West Germany, fleeing East Germany. So, and the East German government had a problem. Doctors, the doctors was going to the West, the nurses, the engineers, the architects, teachers, lawyers, they all moved to the West. And there was a big escape during that time. And so that's why they built 1961, that Berlin Wall. What means they divided West Germany, East Germany, and then they built a wall around the three zones in Berlin. Berlin was also defeated in 4 pieces. And so they built a wall around West Berlin. And so that was a pretty tough wall. Actually, it's not a wall. They had like 7 stages. There was a wall, but there was also a fence, electrical fence. Then there was a fence with automatic machine guns. If you touch it, they would shoot you. There was a fence with grenades. Then there was a fence, there was dogs running there. So it was almost impossible to overcome that wall. A lot of people died there, was killed there because of that.
Wow. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's completely, well,
So
I'm not saying they weren't teaching that when I was in school, but when I was in school, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
So they may have brought that up, but I think I missed it.
You know what, it's not a shame because we didn't learn much about American history in Germany. So,
Yeah.
So it's not.
Oh, I didn't learn American history in
Yeah.
school. I didn't pay attention to that either.
Okay.
I had to learn later.
Okay. So when I was 15 years old, I realized something. I became a little bit critical in a positive way. You know, as a little child, you take everything what they tell you. You believe it. But if a government lies to you or painted a different picture than reality is, you start doubting them. And so that's happened to me when I was 15 years old. And I realized, hey, something is wrong. It didn't fit the picture here. They say socialism is so great and so good, and why do I feel like just a number? You know, the difference between, today the word humanism, you know, we have this word, but what it makes actually, it put humans in the center of everything. As Christians, we're totally different because we put God in the center of everything. And so that's why these two didn't fit together. That didn't mean we are not humans to other humans, you know,
Right.
nice to other people, help them. And, you know, that's what we all should do, you know, to other people if they are in need. And so that's why I believe a little bit, I know that word is abused, but what I mean is we need some social justice, a little bit. You know, there are people, like in a rich country like America, there's such a gap. And that is crazy. The same in Germany. The only thing is, in Germany, I think because they tax us more, they have more programs, unemployment programs, and all this. So it's a little different. But what I'm saying is actually, America has the resources and can do much better. The resources can change people. You know, if people don't like to work, and then you can change that.
Right.
You know, that's another deal. But what I'm saying is, America is a rich country. And when I was 15 years old, I realized that picture didn't fit what I see in the society. And so, like in school, our everything was propaganda. You know, almost in music, we had to sing communist songs. I was astonished by the Christian kids. They never sung that. So
Really?
Yeah, they stood up. They say, no, we don't sing that because it's against our belief, knowing they will have the worst grades.
Wow.
Knowing they will never go to university, even if they are the best in school, they would never go to university.
Wow.
It was never be allowed. And so if you expose yourself as a Christian, as a Bible-believing Christian, your future was done.
And they did it anyway.
They did it, yeah. The interesting thing is, when the wall came down, I realized all these Christian kids, because they was always hard workers, I should say most of them, they had a good work ethic. So most of the time, for some reason, they came up and they came to higher positions then.
Wow.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's
God
great.
will never forget if you did something for him.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then, okay, so then when did you go into the Army? And did you choose to go into the Army, or they choose that for you? Is that?
You have to go.
You have to go,
So
okay.
it was like, I think I was in school, I was 16 years old or 15 years old. And there they came, some people from the Army, they came in school and they said, do you like to sign up for 3 years or more? And then you would be their favorite, you know, if you freely go to the company. And I decided not to go. I said, you know, the minimum I have to go, I do that. Otherwise, they put you in jail. I mean, there was a lot of Christians. They choose not to go, and they say it's against my belief. And they had, in the Army, they had a special, I don't know how you say that, battalion or platoon? Battalion, you know. And they had on their shoulder a shovel. And what means was they was working, building things, and they didn't have to pick up a gun.
Okay.
And so they had to serve their time there. And it was bad. If you have this on your record, you didn't serve normal Army time, it was bad on your record. And so, but I was, my father was a communist, so they expected me to go longer than 1.5 years. I said, no, I'm not going. My brother, he was a little bit manipulated by my parents. And so they said, you have to do that, otherwise we probably have problems. And so he chose to go for 3 years to the Army. But when I saw all this, I said, no, I'm going just the minimum time I have to go. And so, and then I was almost 18, a few days before I became 18. No, I was after. A few days after I was 18, I joined the Army there, and I had to go. And by that time, we had long hair. You know, we was listening to hippie music, and because that's what, you know, airwaves. There's no border.
Right, right.
And so I had to go to the Army. They cut my hair, and I hated
Your hair's
this.
long again.
Yeah, a little bit. I hated this, you know, to fight or to go to a government and represent the government with their uniform, and I hated this. And so they asked me a tricky question, and I thought that's a joke, you know. When I came to the army, they asked me, "What will you do if someone runs over the wall?" And the right answer was, I take my gun and I shoot him down. And I don't know what's happened to me that day. I said, "Sir, I hang my gun to the tree and I run with him." Bad answer. Bad answer.
They didn't think that was funny.
They didn't. I mean, I found myself questioning from the secret police a little bit later. But what it does was actually, the plan was they would put me on that wall, and I had to serve at the wall there. And so I never saw the wall. I never was in a conflict. If someone runs through it, you had to shoot him. If you don't shoot them, they put you in jail. So I never had this conflict. So I was in a regular army camp there, and that's it. So, and there, someone before I went to the army, I became very interested in Christianity. There was a guy on my workplace, and I was working as an electrician. And there was a guy on my workplace, and he was different than the most Christians I've seen. You know, he really was a strong believer. And he really tried to follow all the commandments. He really tried to make it right. And so that really helps me. And I start reading. He gave me some material. And then finally, when I went to this army camp, I had this little Bible, and I started reading the Bible. And, you know, I didn't know it was wrong, drinking, smoking, reading the Bible all in the same time. But that's what I did, you know. But one day I was reading the scripture that sick people, I don't have the verse, you know, the sick people needs a doctor, not the healthy ones.
Right.
And so I realized when I was reading this, I need to be saved. I need someone who helps me get out of that mess. I was drinking too much. My lifestyle, of course, I had a worldly lifestyle.
Of course.
And so,
Can you tell the people listening about your method of Bible study? Because you're German, so you're very systematic.
yes, of course, I had the Bible in the evening. So I had a glass of vodka, one cigarette, and I was drinking, and then read one chapter in the Bible. After one chapter, I lighted up another cigarette, had another glass, drink that, next chapter. And so some nights I had a lot, you know.
You read the Bible a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so how did you end up becoming a Christian?
After reading a little while, I realized, hey, I need God. And so my way, I thought, you know, to show you your respect to God and you honor Him was go to my knees, put my machine gun on the side, went to my knees, and I said, Jesus, I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if you like me to have in your team, but here I am. Please take my life. And so from this day, everything changed. I mean, not everything was good, because now these people, they treated me bad.
So they knew you were a Christian?
When they found my Bible, one day they inspected all the rooms, they inspected my closet, found that Bible, and they said, this Bible is anti-communistic. And I couldn't argue.
That's an incredible thought, though,
Yeah.
that the Bible
Yeah.
is against communism.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because communists, they are against every religion. Lenin, I think it was Lenin, who the leader of the communist revolution in Russia, he said, religion is opium for the people. Mm-hmm. So it blinds their minds and it will weaken people to believe and wait for a God, you know. So communism, they said we need to fight for it, you know. We have to aggressively do that. We need to do a revolution. Even if people don't understand what we are doing, why we are doing, we have to force them for a lucky future. And so, I mean, when in October 1917, when the Communist Revolution started in St. Petersburg. You know, they did some shots from this ship, Aurora, and that was the starting point from this revolution. And so all these communist soldiers, they were storming this palace of the Tsar, and so they turned Russia around. And a few days later, because they were so forceful, these communist radicals, they were so bad, some workers, they went to the street and started to demonstrate against them. And so the same leader who started the revolution now was shooting his own people. He was actually should fight for, they shoot them down. So they became a real aggressive movement. And of course, later, the leader after Lenin was Joseph Stalin. And I don't know exactly, but he killed, I think it was 50 or 60 million of his own people, and started all these concentration camps like gulags. They call it gulags. They in Siberia. I mean, they was brutal and terrible. And so the mindset of this new communists in East Germany was the same mindset. They was raised and trained and schooled in this Moscow or Russian schools, communist schools for leaders. And so they learned a lot from the Russians. And so the Russians, they had the KGB, and they copied that and they brought it to East Germany, and they call it Staatssicherheit, what means state security, or the short term was Stasi. And so they brought it in, and they created a system where you could never trust anybody. If you go today to some of these East Bloc countries, some old people, they do this but before they talking because of
I've seen that before.
Because of lip reading. So
really,
yeah, this is because of lip reading. These old people, wow. they do that because they were so used to this. You can't trust anybody, and sometimes parents, they would tell their children, "Hey, don't say that at school. Don't say that to your neighbor." And it was after the wall came down, I received a letter from the new government, and they said, you have a right to look to your secret police files. And so they came out, and I had this hundreds of pages from the secret police. And
so the secret police had a file on you?
Almost on everybody.
But they had one specifically for you?
Yes, they had.
And it
one.
was hundreds of pages?
Yeah. And so if you was a suspicious person, and I was suspicious for them, because when I became a Christian, I quitted all union membership of a union or membership of different communist organizations. I joined them because then they let you alone,
Right.
And so I did it, but when I became a Christian, I thought that's not right. They are not supporting Christians; they're actually fighting Christians. So I stopped everything, and I became a suspicious person. And so there was a list of names who spied on me. There was.
So you got to see that. The people who reported you
yes.
to the secret police?
Yes.
Or the people that they had interviewed about you?
Yes.
And you got to see that?
I saw the names, and I saw the reports. I saw what they wrote down and shoot it to their officer in the secret police. And so it was a sad day, because there was people that was closed. They acted like they are friends, but secretly they reported this to the secret police.
So people that you thought were your friends?
Yeah, there was letters. I found letters in that. I mailed them to West Germany or to the United States. They never reached the destination. They was in that file. And so it was interesting. I knew it. For some reason, I knew it. And so what I did after a while, I went to the Czech Republic, what is a 2-hour drive. Or even further, I flew to Budapest, and all my mail I did in Budapest or in the Czech Republic. And so then this letters or information reached the people. So that was a wild time. And so,
Yeah.
but it was also sad because when you see the betrayal, when they see the reports about your sexuality or things like that, it's bad, you know. And so, for me, it was okay. But I heard from people they was betrayed by their own wife.
Oh man.
Or they was betrayed by their own families, brothers, reported to the secret police. I found a file in that, a page in that file. There was a lady, she wrote down, you know, my niece is going to this church and I'm happy to help you, to the secret police, and I will find some information from my niece and I will report that to you. So what I'm saying is they blackmailed people into a situation. I know from a guy, they blackmailed him and said, if you don't work for us, you go to jail. But this lady, she did it freely. So there was different levels.
So it's like a mixture.
Yeah.
Some were intentional betrayal and some
Yes.
people were forced into
Yes,
it. And
yes.
yeah. Wow.
Yes. So, then in the army, I tried to do my job so nobody can criticize me. But it came to a certain point when I told the officer, I will never shoot somebody for you. I will never do this. And I realized some of the officers, after a while, they liked me. So they said, hey, you don't have to do that. We will not report this. So what I'm saying is, I did fulfill all my duties, what was not against my belief. Mm-hmm. And so they start respecting me there.
Yeah.
And so they don't believe what I believed. They don't understand why I'm a Christian or whatever. But they respected me for that.
Because you didn't use that as an excuse, being a Christian, to not do anything.
Yes.
You still did your job.
Yes.
And you worked as hard as you could.
Yes.
But you wouldn't do the parts that violated your faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's a great testimony.
And so, and then after 1.5 years, I was out of the army. I met my wife. I prayed, I found that scripture that God will fulfill all your needs. And I said, Jesus, give me a girl. I need a girl, a good girl. Don't give me an ugly one. I'd like to have a good one. And I met my wife, and she was already a Christian. And she was in a group called Navigators.
Oh, yeah.
And she brought me together with them. And these people, they was awesome. They put a great biblical foundation in me.
That's great.
And still today, I'm benefit from that.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good organization.
Yeah. And after this, 2 years later, we got married. We got our first child. And then when our first child was 6 years old, we decided that he will not go and join they called it pioneer organization, like pioneer organization. That was kind of a communist child organization. And we told them he will not join this organization. And exactly, he got marked. And the teachers gave him a hard time in school. By the same time, when you have to go to when you send your child to the school, you have to make a decision. They have to join one kind of out-school activity, after-school activity. And so most of the time it was a little bit political or political influenced. And so we made a decision 1 year before he came to school that we will bring him to a music school so we can tell them he has already an after-school activity. And so he joined the music school, and that's what all of our 3 children did.
That's great.
And so he learned the grand piano, and he became a good student.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, and then how did you end up in the ministry?
It was 1985. I will know exactly because it was a few days after this power plant exploded in Russia.
Oh, Chernobyl.
Chernobyl in the Ukraine.
Right.
I heard about this, and I was in Budapest by that time, and so we had a great relationship with that pastor from this church, but also an underground church, and I realized I felt there's a call on my life, but I was not prepared for that, and so I established a relationship with that pastor. And for a number of years, he taught me how to have a Bible group, a prayer group, and so that's how we started. But in 1985, in this underground church, they had kind of a conference. A group of Americans was in, and one prophesied to me, and this changed my life. So I returned home, and I said, what we do is we will start a church. We have a Bible group already. We have a prayer group already. What we need to do is we need to find a name for our church, and then even if it's an underground church, and we will have worship, we will have communion, we will do all this what churches do. And so we did this, and the group grew. Some people I don't know. So I addressed every time we came together, I said, some of you I don't know. You probably work for the Secret Service, for the Stasi, but I'd like to tell you, I'm not against anybody. I don't like to, we will not have a revolution and kill people or do anything like that. We just like to have church. We will pray for this government. I disagree with the government, but we will pray for them. We will help all people here to have a good relationship with Jesus, read their Bibles, and so I made it clear that I'm not an
enemy.
An enemy, yes.
Right.
And so then, but then I realized they are watching us. We had our meetings in our house, and by that time we bought a very old beat-up house, remodeled that, and one Sunday we had a Sunday morning service, and I was preaching, and I looked out of the window and I saw two guys with a fishing rod. And I thought, this little pond there is full of chemicals. There's not one fish in. What are they doing? They are stupid. And so they said, I thought, I don't know what it is, but a few minutes later, they walked by with their rods and they wrote down all the license plates. And then I know this is secret police. Mm-hmm. And so I was a little scared because I thought if you are on their radar, it can be very difficult. And so I thought, what should I do? I prayed and I said, Jesus, what should I do? And I felt in my spirit, write down a letter to the secret police and ask them for a permission to have a church. So write down, you are not against them, just you like to have church. And so I had no address from them. I only put on to the secret police, put it in the mailbox, and voila, after 2 weeks, they got it, After 2 weeks, I got an answer back, and they said, you please come to our office in Berlin, and so bring your photo ID. And so I went with my wife and a good friend of mine. We went to Berlin, and so then they in the beginning they took us away, and that was a scary moment because I was not sure what they do. They took our photo IDs away, and I thought that was scary. And so, but then they brought us together in that room, and they started questioning us, and they made fun of us. They made jokes about us, and even sexual jokes. It was bad, but you couldn't do anything. And so, after a while, they said, there are almost too many people, too many churches in our country. We don't like that. You will never have permission from us to have a church. Never. I learned something from Brother Samuel. Brother Samuel always said, if people say never, that's the moment when God steps in.
That's great. That's awesome.
And so we came home, but on my way out of that building, they kicked us out on my way out, God spoke to me and said, prophesy to that building, to that wall. So I laid my hands on that wall. It was not the Berlin Wall, from that building. And the camera started zooming me. You could hear that. And soldiers, they were screaming at me, what are you doing? And so I said, Jesus, you are not a respecter of persons. What you did for Moses, you can do for me too. Let my people go. And so nothing happened. But then a little bit later, the American president, Ronald Reagan, he visited West Berlin, and he had this famous speech at the Brandenburg Gate. And twice he said, Mr. Gorbachev, if you seek prosperity and peace for the East European countries, open this gate, tear that wall down. I was sitting on the other side, and I started crying. I said, Jesus, how can that be? I don't know how. But then 1.5 years later, I think it was 1.5 years later, and you know, God uses all kinds of people. They don't have to be ministers. They don't have to be Christians. He uses all kinds of people. There was people from the green movement, environmental people. They realized how bad the government treated the environment, and that was really bad. I mean, and so they made, and they came together. They asked a Lutheran pastor in Leipzig, we need a meeting place. We can't do that in a private home, or we will never have a permission, but we can do it in a Lutheran church. And this pastor said, of course, you can come in. They called it prayer for peace. I think they never prayed, but they had so much attention. In the beginning, there was like 20, 30 people, and then they grew to 2,000. More and more people, and they started after their prayer meeting. They marched through the city. Of course, most of them was arrested, but after a few thousand, you can't arrest them anymore.
There's nowhere to put them.
Yeah, and so in I think it was January by 1989, they had this massive demonstration in Tiananmen Square in China, in Beijing. And our vice president was there. And I think he got the idea how to handle a situation like this. So when June, July, August, when it came, it became massive in our country. Not only in our city, it spread all over East Germany. And by the end, I think it was October 6th, October 6th, I was driving into the city, and you could feel, like, I don't know how to explain that, you could feel this demonic presence. It felt like death is there. And I started praying in my little car, and I had this real hard burden to pray for the city, and I was screaming, no war here in Jesus' name, no war here in Jesus' name. And after like 15, 20 minutes, it was gone. And I came home, turned on the news, and they said, today our president resigned because of health issues. 2 weeks later, we found out he had not health issues. He gave order to shut down the whole city there and kill and arrest all the people there. And I mean, on that next day, they had almost 250,000 on the streets.
Wow.
And so it was a real bad situation. And his own political guys in this party, they said, no, that's too far. We will not shoot down the people, because they ordered troops from the Russian army. They ordered troops from the East German army. There were police everywhere. And so in this, a real revolution, a peaceful revolution started there. and nobody died. Not one single person died, not one. And for me, that's a miracle. The most, if you have something like that, and dictatorship was kicked out most of the time, it cost blood. But there was not one casualty.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So, and then after this, I was working in a Catholic church because I needed more time. So 2 years before the wall came down, I quit my job as an electrician. I started a job in a printing company, but the guy in the printing company was a bad leader or owner of this company. He didn't like me, and so I quit this, and I found out they was looking for a maintenance guy in the Catholic church. And I ended up there, and I talked with this Catholic pastor, and I said, look, I need 3 days working as a job, otherwise this government will put me in jail. If you didn't have a job, they would put you in a prison. And so this Catholic pastor, he said, well, you can work 3 days for me and then do your own thing for your church. That's fine with me. And we became friends. In the beginning, he was a little bit suspicious because I didn't know the rules in a Catholic church, and so I did some mistakes. I had to clean the saints, the dust, and so. And there was one time they had this halo from Mary, and I took that halo and put it around her neck like a necklace. And he didn't like it.
He didn't think that was funny.
No, he didn't think it was funny. I said, hey, she's looking better with that, So, but after a while, he understood my sense of humor, and we became friends. And when I left, wall was down, and I said, sir, I don't need the job anymore. I will take care about the church now full time. And he had tears in his eyes, and he said, you're a good man. And I said, sir, you're a good man. You would be a great family man, a great father. And so he cried, and years later he passed away, but he was a great guy.
That's cool.
Yeah. He actually, I know a few people, by the way, our chancellor lady, her father, lived in West Germany. And when they heard the communists will take over East Germany, her father moved to East Germany from the free world to a dictatorship world.
Wow.
Just for the sake that somebody is there will take care about the Christians.
Wow, that's cool.
And so this Catholic pastor did the same thing. He lived in West Germany, knowing when his parents died, they didn't allow him to bury his parents. So he came he felt this is his call. He has to be obedient to his call. And so I know another pastor, he did exactly the same thing.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and then we started the church, and church was growing, and it was good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about a conversation that we were having the other day on the phone. We were talking about when East Germany was liberated and you were free, but then you came to the United States in 1991.
Yeah.
And you were saying what you experienced about freedom.
Myself and the Germans in general, we never had real freedom. The German mentality is, I don't know how to say that. Anyway, what I'm saying is for hundreds of years we had kings, we had a Kaiser, even the Prussian army and all this, they was very dominant. Mm-hmm. So there was always rules. There was always, you have to obey that. And when I came first to America, I realized, man, these people, they make their own decisions. They decide what they like to do. In communist times, the government made the decisions. They even told you when you have to do your checkup with the doctor.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they told you have to pay this for the health insurance and all this, And it was not that bad in the West German society, but there was still more rules than here in America. I mean, here in America, I heard that saying, the best government is the government you don't see,
Right.
you know? And when I came here first to America, I haven't seen too much, and I haven't seen hatred like this over the years. Especially for me, it looks like when I came together with African American people, there was not this distance, you know? Of course, racism was always in every society.
Sure.
Racism is today in America, and racism is today in Germany. Nationalism, the difference between nationalism and patriotism is you can be proud about your nation, you can be a patriot, but we don't sing the German anthem, the first verse, because it's a Germany, Germany above all. So, and that's the difference. When you become proud about your nation, or when you become look down on other nations, and that was part of our mentality. That's a little bit in Europe still there. Is that there? And so, I haven't seen that hatred. I haven't seen this aggressive rhetoric, and now it's more there, and so I really don't like that. That people screaming at each other. Maybe I understand more English now, and I understand more than I understood in the beginning. You know.
Yeah, and so when you first came, you were talking about that the words socialism and communism were bad words.
Yes, it was
In
bad.
America.
In America, it was bad words now, and I think people don't understand what it means. The word socialism comes from this word socius, what means balanced. You know, we have on a motorcycle you have a socius.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that is you're on the same level. And I think the idea is great. We all equal in the eyes of God. But then people make different decisions. People have different focuses. There are people, they work much harder as other people. And I think it would be unjust if you take it from them. You know, they made a good decision and give it to the other. I totally understand.
Yeah.
We need taxes. We need to help
Sure.
the needy people. We have to help elderly people. We have to help single moms and all this, you know. So
How about this statement? What do you think about this? That socialism is the highest expression of greed because the person who wants, they feel entitled to the fruit of the person who has worked.
yeah,
So you might not work, but you feel like what this person has worked for belongs to you.
I think it's wrong. It's wrong. You know, I mean, I see there's a lot of people here in America. They donate to charity.
Yeah.
A lot of churches in America, they take care about poor people, and the reason for that is because the government is not doing this.
Right.
You know, and so churches do that, and that's a good way. I'm saying, I think as a church we should take care about people.
Yeah.
Period. But I think also the government has to build an environment where people have the same chances.
Yeah, that's equal opportunity,
Equal opportunities.
not equal results.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
But then you were talking about, I think it's interesting, you were talking about people make better choices and then people make worse choices.
yes.
But if there are no consequences for the worst choices, then those people will continue to make the worst choices. For example, one of the the biggest markers for poverty in the future is being raised in a single-parent household.
Yes.
But we're promoting that culture in America because the government rewards single mothers with more money than they would someone who that was married with a family that was intact. And so we're actually funding the worst decisions.
I don't know about that, but what I'm saying, what I'd like to say is there are people, they probably grow up in a broken home. So this child has no chance.
Right.
So I know here in America there are programs you still can go to university. And I think the world is not a righteous or just place.
Right.
You know, it's not.
It's not.
We have to live with that. Not everybody will have the same opportunities. We have that right now in Germany. You see there's a gap between the families with a higher income. They can send their kids to better schools or private schools or whatever. And then you have this lower income and there's a gap. And I don't know how to fix that. The only thing what I recommend is the concept what I used. I used the concept, my wife and I, we all owed nothing when we got married. But I know my wife is very hardworking. I am very hardworking. And what we did is we prayed together. We brought our tithe to the storehouse, worked again every month, brought the tithe back. And I'm not, I don't know how to say that, I'm not this, in America, the concept from tithing or financial thing is abused from some preachers.
Right, like the prosperity type. It's too much.
It's too much. But I believe in that concept. Bring your tithe and honor God with that. And then pray for good opportunities. And I believe that's the only way to bring you out. All this...
well, because we have to... You know Bob Weiner?
Yes.
We had a great conversation about that before. But Bob Weiner asked me one day, he said, what's more powerful, the anointing or culture? And I said, the anointing. He said, wrong. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, Jesus went to his hometown and he could only do a few miracles because of the unbelief, because that was his relative. So the culture was more powerful than even the anointing of Jesus. And so one of the problems I think in the church is that we think, oh, if we pray for these people, that will fix it. Or the government says, man, if we give them more chances, that will fix it. But sociology talks about egocentrism and that they sabotage their own life opportunities because they tell themselves, hey, being poor is actually better. All the reasons, and it's a survival mentality. So we give them opportunities, but in the culture, they're telling themselves, we don't want to be like those people. So they talk themselves out. So they sabotage their own opportunities. So we think if we give them an opportunity, they'll be fine. If we pray, they'll be fine. But the truth is, that culture of poverty has to be addressed. And the culture has to be changed. Because if you come out of a ghetto or a barrio and you become successful, the people that are still there, they will say, you're not an example, you're a sellout. And that's a terrible culture. I mean, so that's a huge sociological issue that affects the economics of especially that type of...
But you know, I'm from Europe, so there's a total different mindset. And for me, America and probably Great Britain is the purest form of capitalism. You know, I think capitalism in general today is a bad word. You know, capitalism is a bad word.
People
today.
use it like it's a bad thing.
But I think it's the greed. You know, it's the greed from people in higher positions or who owns businesses, the abuse of their power. That's the bad thing, you know. So I think to live in a society where you have opportunities, where you have ideas and you work hard and you do your best, it's a great idea, you know. But there's too much greed, you know.
There's something interesting about that. One of the positive sides of capitalism is that there's incentive built in for the most highly skilled workers to take the jobs with the most responsibility, require the most talent. For example, a brain surgeon. If you need brain surgery, you're not looking for a discount, right?
Of course.
You want the best, right?
Yeah.
So how do we motivate someone to go to school for those many years, extra years, and to study and sacrifice to become a brain surgeon?
Yeah.
Well, we tell them you're going to make enough money to have a big house here, one on the beach, one in Florida, you know, Porsches, BMWs, Mercedes, those are all German cars. I did that for you. And so all of these things, but it is a motivation, right? So in that sense, it might be the greed, but some people it could be the prestige, it could be the calling.
I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about
the abuse of power. But what I'm saying is I think a lot of people don't understand that if there was no incentive, those people will not go to those jobs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that's what you were saying. I'm saying just for our listeners so that they would understand a little bit. That's the motivation for a person to do the extra work.
Yeah.
To get into that position, right? And so that there is some greed involved in that and maybe some selfishness. But some people, I believe, are called to those things, you know. But we want the best.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, in Germany, you don't pay for your university.
Right.
It's free. And I'm surprised why not more people take this opportunity. You know, so they make a decision, even if it's free, not to do this. So, and there are a lot of people, they do it, and that's great. So I think every person creates his own future. Of course, not everybody, there's also a little bit luck, you know.
Sure,
you have to be a little bit lucky, and so, but
people don't want to admit this, but some people are smarter than us.
That's another thing,
You know, I'm not going to be a brain surgeon.
Yeah.
I've never had the motivation, and I never had the intelligence to become a brain surgeon.
Yeah, of course.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But people don't want to admit that.
Yeah.
You know, they want to say, we should all make the same. It's like, well, some people are smarter than us.
Yeah.
Some people are more skilled than us at some things, and those people should be rewarded.
Yeah. So I think America is going in the direction like Europe right now. And to some degree, I only say to some degree, some changes has to be made. Because like I said, I mean, there's a big gap in the society, and nobody should eat out of a trash can. I saw that in New York City. Nobody should take their food out of trash cans, or all the people collecting plastic bottles, you know. So, but this is a very fine line, because there are always people, they're working harder, and there are always people, they say, hey, let the government take care about me. Maybe you heard that last September we had a very huge landslide and storm and flood in West Germany, and our government did a tremendous job to help the people. And I felt very sad for all the people. There was people, they lost everything. But the government stepped in, and they gave them a portion of what they lost. It was probably, I don't know how much it was, but let's say there was a family, they received about 90,000 euros. What's a lot of money. Of course, to rebuild that, their house cost probably 5 times more. But and then I heard people, they was angry that the government is doing not enough. And I realized the government can't do everything. It's impossible. There will come more floods, there will come more hurricanes or whatever. And so there's one side is you have a grateful heart, and there's the other side, you ask the government to do everything.
A sense of entitlement.
Exactly.
And the government doesn't have any money.
Yeah,
That's our money.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, the government doesn't
Yeah,
just have
yeah.
money. That's
So-
what people think, well, I'm going to get some money from the government. No, you're
So-
going to take more money from someone who earned it through taxes.
Yeah. So I know people, they got unemployed, and I was happy for them that the government helped them with unemployment benefits so they can get up on their feet again. And that's a great thing.
Yes.
You know? So I'm not against this. The only thing is, and that's, I feel more here in America, is, I don't know how to say that, but I feel more alive here in America than in Europe. Pain feels stronger here, but joy feels stronger here too.
Wow, that's incredible. That's interesting.
Because life is much harder here in America than in Europe. Because in Europe, in Germany, people help each other, and you don't have this kind of society here too much, you know.
Interesting.
I feel life is harder here.
Wow.
Also, to establish friendships and all this, it looks like it's harder here, you know, for me.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Let's end on this one thing that you were talking to me about the other day. You were saying that if the United States became a socialist nation, you were telling me the positive part of what you thought about the church. Do you remember that? You were talking about the roots of the church in America.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you thought that regardless of the government, that you thought the church was going to be.
I think America has the last 250 years of church history are here in America or England, or, you know. So everything what built the church in general came out of the United States. And so here in America, it is deep-rooted going to church on Sunday. That is, or honoring preachers, ministers, bringing the tithes, at least support the church, making donations and all this. And I think America still sends more missionaries to the world than any other country. America still gives more money to the gospel and preaching the gospel in the world than any other country. And so because of that, I believe America has a great future, you know. It probably, even, let's say, even if you have a more, I believe that there will be some changes in the laws here in America. So because the abuse of, let's say, preachers, some ministries, they pay no taxes because it's, how you call it?
Non-profit.
Non-profit. But on the other hand, you see preachers, they, I don't know how to say that. And I'm not, I hope the viewers, they understand me. I'm not criticizing any person, but the impression, what the unbelievers or the government in America have is they cheating because they don't pay no taxes, but on the other hand, they live in mansions or Ritz-Carltons, or, you know, and so they will come up with the idea we need to tax them. So they will change some things in the future, and I don't think so. They will take some things away from them, but they will change their tax status. And so, but I believe there will be because of so many years, Christianity here in America, and of course there is also some worldliness in some churches because it's tradition. If they are not born again, it's more a tradition. And so Joseph Biden is Catholic, and I'm not against Catholics, but you know, the Catholics have a very long tradition. And so what I'm saying is people will maybe on the government side or probably not believing, they have their traditions, and so they will put some stop signs somewhere. I don't say they will persecute the church, but they will guide this a little bit. So there will be no abuse or whatever. And so I think even if it feels like they becoming tough on us, I don't think for the near future it will end up in dictatorship. So I don't think so. I think what they do is they will regulate some things and put some laws in, like what they did in Europe. And so that's, I think, how it goes in the next few years.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Hey, I want to thank you for coming.
Hey, thank you.
And sharing. Always
Thank you,
good to
Richard.
talk with you. Always have a
Thank you
great
very much.
time, and it's great to get a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I always appreciate your thoughtfulness about the church around the world and in the United States and what's going on. So it's always great to be with you. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Warriors and Wild Men, go to warriorsandwildmen.com, subscribe, like us, love us, it's free. We'll send you a couple emails a week. You can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcast. But make sure you subscribe, because we are getting deplatformed on some pages and groups. So do that. And if you want to help support the ministry, go to the War Chest. It's tax deductible. We'll send you information on that. And for those that are supporting the ministry, we appreciate you guys. God bless you guys. Warriors and Wild Men out.